Hi there, it's Home Bible Fellowship Week. It's good to be together. I'm sure you've spent some time catching up with one another, finding out what's been happening with each other. As usual, we're going to look back at the sermon that was preached on Sunday, and we're going to think through that and just see how that applies to our lives. So, as you start your time together, take an opportunity, just if there's any standouts or any questions that have arisen from the sermon on Sunday, have a chat about those, see if you can help each other out or encourage each other. But here's a wee starter question to go alongside that as well. What is it that makes a house into a home? What is it that makes a house into a home? There's a difference there, so see if you can decide between yourselves what it is that makes that difference. We want to jump into the text that we read on Sunday, but I want you to read it with a little bit of context. It's always important to see the context of some verses, and we always try and do that, but I want you to read a few verses around about the passage that we read. Let me tell you what I want you to do. First of all, read the last verse of chapter 10. So Hebrews chapter 10, verse 39. Read that together. Then read our passage from Sunday, which was Hebrews 11 to 19. And after you've done that, skip forward a little bit to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Once you've read all those three little chunks, here's the question that I'd like you to think about. So with the verses before and after in mind, why do you think the author, and why do you think God, who has inspired this word, has put chapter 11, this chapter about faith, in there? What's the purpose of this chapter, using those verses before and after to guide your discussion? I think those verses before and after are so important as we look at these verses. They set it up, they help us to understand why they're there. It's set up by saying that we, the readers of the letter, are those of faith, and so their souls are preserved. Then we come to chapter 11, we have all these examples of faith. We see how God has worked through the Old Testament, how God continues to work. And we see the effects of faith. We see what's happened in the lives of all these people that are listed. And as we come to the end of the chapter, we'll do that in a few weeks, and into chapter 12, we see the therefore, because of this, we're to fix our eyes on Jesus. This should be the result of seeing all these examples of faith, that we're spurred on to fix our eyes on Jesus as well. So as we look at our passage from Sunday, bear all these things in mind. If you are listening to the sermon, if you've looked through the text, you'll remember there were three kind of main things in Sunday's sermon. We saw that God has established a family. And he did that through the miraculous birth of Isaac. We see that God has promised and is making a home for his people. And we saw Abraham not turning back. We saw how they all pushed on. Even though they hadn't received it yet, they were looking to that city that was promised, that they would live in, that they would dwell in. And we see that God takes his people to that home that he's made for them through death and resurrection. We saw that figuratively in Isaac, who didn't actually die but was brought back. But we see that in Jesus, who did die and who did rise again. And therefore, we too can die and rise again to new life with God forever in the place that he's prepared for his people. So we see that the Old Testament saints, they had this partly, but not yet fully. They looked ahead, and the same is true for us. We maybe see more. We've seen Jesus come, but we look forward to the home that God is preparing for us. So we see this partly, but not yet fully. So here's a question to discuss. Do you realize what you have? Do you realize what you have? We had the illustration on Sunday of the mansion owner who lived in the gutter. It would be crazy. Or if you had £1 million in your bank and you lived like you had nothing, it would be mad. So do you realise what you have. Have a chat. Well, if we realise what we have, we see what God by faith gives his people, how does or how should that change your life and my life? We looked at those three things. So some questions are, how are you living as part of the family? If we know we're in a family, how are you living as part of the family? What difference does it make to your life? How do you engage with people? Do you see those that sit around you at church as your family? Secondly, what does it look like to store up treasures in heaven, not on earth? Do you live your life in the here and now? Try to make your life comfortable, trying to have as much stuff as you can? Or do you look ahead and look to store up treasures in heaven? If you do, how do you do that? And thirdly, do you, like Abraham, believe that God can raise the dead? Do you believe that? We believe that in the Lord Jesus. He died, he rose again. But do you realise how important it is for us as well? Death is not the end. We'll be raised and we will live in new bodies with the Lord forever. Do you believe that, and how does that change how you live? Have a wee discussion. As we come to the end of our time together, maybe there's things that have arisen in your head. Make sure you don't go away with unanswered questions. Have a chat about that now. But now's also the time to pray together. Maybe there's things that have come out of this discussion, this study, that you need to pray about. Share that and do that. Maybe there's other things going on in life. Take an opportunity to share with your family and to pray together. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.